Good afternoon. It's Saturday the 2nd of November. It's rather a miserable Saturday the 2nd of November. Those of us who are of a certain age and those of us who also enjoyed in the past listening to the radio, and especially downtown radio from Belfast, will easily recognise this charming lady here. This is Candy Devine, who died recently, aged 85. She died in Australia, her native Australia. I met Candy Devine whenever I first started teaching in Newtonbridge High School. I'd come down from Banbridge. I'd gone through Stranmillis College and then I graduated, and Newtonbridge High School was my first teaching school, and I stayed there for most of 30 years. And in those early years I would have listened to downtown radio quite a bit, and Candy Devine was an instrumental part of downtown radio. I was staying in Diggs in Glendale Park, just off the St. Field Road, and I was staying with a lady called Mrs. Sturdy, and she was very, very good to me. Candy Devine was one of our neighbours and one of our good friends, and she used to drop in and have a, we enjoyed frequent conversations and meetings in the kitchen of Mrs. Sturdy's home. So that was my first encounter with Candy Devine. In fact, a few years later I went on to teach her son, Alistair MacLeod, who today is a top-rated TV chef out there in Australia. He has done well for himself, and I'm sure his mother was very, very proud to see him reach the heights. But this is Candy Devine back in those early days of downtown radio. So what does the news article say about her? One of downtown radio's former presenters, well-known singer, and she was a cabaret singer down at the Talk of the Town, before she hit downtown radio. Candy Devine has died aged 85. The presenter passed away in her native Australia. She was recruited as one of the first presenters of downtown radio, which went on air in 1976. She was awarded an MBE for services to broadcasting and to the community in Northern Ireland. She was an absolutely charming lady. And such a beautiful presenting voice. I used to listen to her all the time. What does it say? In a statement, downtown content director Stuart Robinson said Candy was a household name on radio. She really was in Northern Ireland. Having been with Downtown from the launch in 1976 right through to her retirement in 2013. A great broadcaster and communicator, and was an inspiration to many aspiring broadcasters coming through the radio industry. Great honour to work with her. Don Anderson recruited Candy Devine when the station began as one of the first 21 commercial radio stations in the UK, and he says that she was quite some lady. She was warm and outgoing, vivacious personality, or she had a warm, outgoing, vivacious personality which connected immediately with her audience, whether live or on the airways. Her status as one of the best loved Ulster broadcasters was thus assured. Isn't that nice? As one of the first wave of broadcasters in a self-appointed operated studio, she was also a pioneer. And it goes on, there'll never be another Candy Devine. Paying tribute in social radio, downtown radio presenter Carolyn Fleck said Candy Devine was a powerhouse, a voice many of us grew up listening to, and who was utterly professional in every way. They don't make them like that anymore. A truly inspiring woman. It goes on to say, from former colleague David Blevins, he said that Candy Devine was a saint of a woman. The term dulcet tones was invented for her. He posted on X, formerly Twitter, "I've cherished the memories of the banter we shared when I read the news on her radio show." And John Rossborough, he adds, a wonderful colleague and outstanding broadcaster. She was loved by the local audience and much missed after she returned to Australia to be with her family. And she was deeply interested in everyone she met. Speaking to BBC News NI, Jill Ellis, who met Candy Devine and her husband Donald MacLeod in 1984, said she was a proud family woman and a lady with many talents. Obviously her broadcasting and singing in the cabaret scene are the most obvious, but she was also a music teacher, seamstress, amazing cook, artist and great listener. As a friend of 40 years, Ellis has said, Candy Devine with Candy Devine have so many memories it would take me all day to share them. During a phone call with Candy Devine on Monday, she said she recalled one of the many trips they went on along with their husbands. She called my husband Twinny, as their birthdays were one day and 26 years apart. We celebrated many birthdays together. She would have been 86 on the 4th of November. When she lost her husband, she decided to go back to Australia and she moved in with us for 6 months. That was a very special time. She loved people and was deeply interested in everyone she met. In December 22, Alice's husband gave her the best Christmas present ever, which was a ticket to Brisbane to visit Candy Devine. Although Candy was in hospital at the time of her visit, she said it was such a precious time. It's not nice. Candy Devine. And there's another article here by in the Belfast Telegraph. And this one is by Dawn Anderson. There are people around us, all of us, that subconsciously you come to believe will be with us forever. Candy Devine was one such person for me. News of her death on the other side of the world caused me therefore to stop what I was doing and reflect on this very special person. Nothing in Candy's early years in 1940s Northern Australia even hinted that she was to become a household name as far from her home as it is possible to be, except for one of her talents. I mean, how in the name of goodness did she wind up, going from the Northern Territories in Australia and arriving to Belfast? And, she was knocking about in Belfast when times were bad. She was a good and exceptional musician. She was a cabaret singer in Talk of the Town down in the city centre, and singer with a family background in show business and musicianship of a kind of international passport that becomes a kind of international passport. So she was immersed in music and singing throughout her teens and later studied piano and cello at Queensland Conservatorium, one of Australia's leading music and performing arts schools. She went on to appear on stage in Sydney. Did I mention that she was also an actor? How did all this natural ability assemble in one girl? I often wondered. Part of the answer must derive from her very mixed heritage. She was born Faye Allen Guevara of Spanish, Sri Lankan, Filipino, English, Danish and Torres Strait Island ancestry. The Torres Strait Islands are roughly halfway between the northern tip of Australia and Papua New Guinea. In 1969, she decided to make a short visit to Ireland, and it lasted over 3 decades. That's very good. Show business was the reason because she met Donald MacLeod, who first became her agent and then her husband. Candy was singing at the Talk of the Town club in Belfast in 1975 when I first met her. That club was then staging international cabaret shows compared by Frank Carson and Roy Walker, two great guys. It was a very difficult, yeah, that's what I said, very difficult time in the Troubles in the mid-70s, not least in show business. In 1975, the Miami show band was ambushed by loyalist paramilitaries returning from a Dublin gig in Banbridge, killing 3 of its members. Remember it well. This was also a time when, as Downtown Radio's inaugural programme controller began assembling a team of broadcasters to launch Downtown Radio the following year. I wanted new voices, different voices from those already established in the BBC. Downtown was one of the first commercial radio stations in the UK, and the studios were designed to be operated by broadcasters themselves, very different from established practice. And there's Dawn Anderson. I'll get rid of myself here. You don't need to see me. I loved Candy's outlook, personality and great experience, and was convinced she would become an outstanding broadcaster, which she did. Candy Devine. Belfast Radio Downtown Radio Institution for so many years. A delightful lady. And I'm sad to hear that she has just died. And I wish her son Alistair, every blessing as he comes through the loss of his mum. I do remember Alistair very, very well. A very popular chap. And he has done so well. And as I say, I'm sure he has made his mother proud. There you go. Candy Devine of Downtown Radio fame. You are gone, but not forgotten.